Tonight, there is nothing you need to fix. Not the words you said too quickly. Not the silence that felt too long. Not the work waiting in another room. Not the message unanswered. Not the small mistake that keeps returning to the doorway of the mind. For now, let the room be simple. Let the night be simple. Let the body feel the quiet weight of the bed beneath it, and the blanket above it, and the small, faithful movement of the breath arriving without being asked. You have carried enough today. If you would like, before we step onto the old temple path together, you may leave a small note in the comments with the time and the place where you are listening from, as if placing a timing lantern beside the road. And if this quiet place brings you ease, you may like the video and subscribe so it is easier to return here on another night when the mind is full and the world feels unfinished. Now, there is no need to hurry. Long ago, in a small mountain monastery, there was a wooden gate at the entrance to the garden. It was not a grand gate. It had no golden roof, no fierce guardians, no carved dragons watching the valley. It was only a simple gate, made from dark cedar, silvered by rain, sun, and many seasons of fog. Every morning, the monks passed through it on their way to the vegetable beds. Every evening, they passed through it again, carrying baskets of greens, muddy tools, and sometimes only the quiet tiredness of the day. The gate knew the touch of many hands. It knew winter frost and summer insects. It knew how the bell sounded before dawn and how the mountain became blue after sunset. One autumn evening, after a storm, a young novice noticed that one side of the gate had split. The crack was not large, but to him it looked like a failure. Rainwater had entered the wood. A hinge leaned slightly. When the wind moved, the gate made a soft, complaining sound. The novice stood before it with a lamp in his hand. The other monks had gone inside. The kitchen fire was low. Rice had been eaten, bowls had been washed and turned upside down. The old abbot had already walked slowly to his room, but the novice remained by the gate. He found a box of nails. He found a strip of wood. He found a small hammer. He told himself he would repair only one part, then rest. But when he fixed one place, he saw another place that looked weak. When he tightened the hinge, he noticed the latch. When he touched the latch, he noticed the swollen wood near the ground. Soon the lamp burned low, and the night became colder. A little after midnight, the old abbot returned along the path, holding no lamp. The moon was bright enough. He saw the novice kneeling beside the gate, his shoulders tight, his hands cold, his face full of effort. The abbot did not scold him. He only stood nearby and listened to the insects in the grass. After a while, the novice said, "Master, I cannot leave it broken." The abbot looked at the gate. Then he looked through the crack in the gate, where a thin line of moonlight was entering the garden. He said, "It is not asking to be perfect tonight." The novice stopped moving. The abbot placed one hand lightly on the old cedar. "In the morning," he said, "we will repair what can be repaired. Tonight, the gate is still a gate. The garden is still inside. The moon is still able to pass through." For a long time, the novice said nothing. He had been treating the crack as if it were a command, as if the split wood had spoken to him and said, "You cannot sleep until I am whole." But the gate had not said this. The storm had not said this. The moon had not said this. Only his own mind had said it. So he set the hammer down. The sound was small, but in the quiet garden it felt like a bell. The abbot lifted the box of nails and carried it back toward the storehouse. The novice picked up the lamp. Together they walked toward the sleeping rooms, leaving the cracked gate under the moon. And when the novice looked back once more, he saw that the line of light through the broken wood was not ugly. It was soft. It lay across the stones like a pale ribbon. It entered exactly where the gate had opened. Perhaps tonight, something in your life also has a crack in it. A conversation that did not close smoothly. A task left undone. A relationship that still feels tender. A decision that has not become clear. A part of yourself you keep trying to improve before you allow yourself to rest. And perhaps your mind has been standing beside it with a hammer, saying, just one more thought, just one more plan, just one more memory, just one more way to make it right. But not every crack is an emergency. Not every unfinished thing is calling your name. Not every problem becomes more loved because you stay awake beside it. Some things can be held more gently. Some things can wait until morning. And some things, even before they are fixed, still let the moonlight through. So feel your hands now. Notice if they are gripping the blanket, the sheet, or simply the memory of control. Let the fingers loosen a little. Let the palms become warm and open. You do not need to hold the hammer of the mind tonight. The breath comes in, the breath goes out. It repairs nothing, and yet it carries you. Your jaw can soften. Your shoulders can drop by a small amount. The back of the neck can release into the pillow. The chest does not have to protect every unfinished story. The belly does not have to tighten around tomorrow. There is a gate somewhere in the dark, and it is cracked. And still it is doing its simple work. There is a garden beyond it. There is moonlight passing through. And there is you, here in this bed, allowed to leave the tools beside the path. The old abbot and the novice slept before the repair was complete. The night did not punish them. The mountain did not fall. The garden did not disappear. Morning came in its own time, not because anyone worried it into being, but because morning has always known the way. And in the same way, your own morning will come. It may bring a clearer thought. It may bring a calmer hand. It may bring the same problem, but with more space around it. Whatever it brings, you do not have to drag it here into the center of the night. For now, let the gate remain under the moon. Let the crack be only a crack. Let the mind stop kneeling in the cold. A little farther down the mountain, below the monastery, there was a narrow road that led to a tea shelter, where travelers sometimes arrived with wet sandals and too many thoughts. And on one quiet evening, when rain was falling softly through the bamboo, a man came there carrying a letter he wished he had never sent. The man at the tea shelter was not old, but the rain had made him look worn, as if the road had been walking through him instead of beneath it. He came in just before the last light left the valley. His robe was dark with water. His straw hat bent low over his face. In one hand, he held an empty letter case, and in the other hand, he held nothing at all, though his fingers remained curved, as if they were still gripping something invisible. The woman who kept the tea shelter looked up from the small charcoal stove. She had gray hair tied simply at the back of her neck, and hands that moved without hurry. All day she served travelers, merchants with dusty feet, monks on pilgrimage, Farmers going to a far field, sons returning home after many years away. She had learned that most people did not first ask for tea. They first brought in their weather. So she said only, "Sit where the roof does not leak." The man sat near the wall. Rain tapped on the wooden eaves. Bamboo leaves bent and lifted outside the open doorway. The valley below was already becoming mist. The tea woman poured hot water over leaves and set a cup before him. He did not drink. After a while, he said, "I sent a letter this morning." She nodded. "I was angry when I wrote it." Again, she nodded. "I told myself the words were honest. But after the messenger left, the anger went away, and the words remained." The tea woman watched the steam rise from his cup. "I walked half the day trying to catch it," the man said. "I thought if I walked quickly enough, I could take the letter back. But the road divided near the cedar bridge. I do not know which way he went." The rain continued, not loudly, but without stopping. The man pressed both hands around the cup, though he still did not drink. "What should I do?" The tea woman did not answer at once. She reached for another cup, one with a small chip near the rim. She poured tea into it and placed it beside his. Then she lifted a wooden spoon and stirred the tea once. The surface moved in a small circle. The steam twisted. The leaves turned slowly in the water. Then, little by little, the motion faded until the tea was still. The man watched it. The tea woman said, "When the spoon has already moved, the water moves for a while." He looked at her. She continued, "You cannot make it still by shouting at the cup." The man lowered his eyes. "I should have held my tongue," he said. "Perhaps," she replied. "And now you can hold the next one." He breathed out through his nose. Almost a laugh, but not quite. It was the sound a tired person makes when truth is not harsh, only plain. The tea woman pushed the cup closer. "Drink before the warmth leaves." This time, he drank. The tea was simple. It did not forgive him. It did not erase the road. It did not call the messenger back from whatever path he had taken. But it warmed his hands. It entered his chest. It gave him one ordinary thing to do that was not chasing, not regretting, not repairing the whole day with thought. Outside, the rain softened. Somewhere far down the valley, a dog barked once and became quiet. After a long time, the man asked, "And if the letter causes pain?" The tea woman gathered the damp cups left by earlier travelers. "Then when morning comes, you may write again, not to erase the first letter, to speak from the place you have now reached." The man sat with this. He had wanted a way to pull back the words, to reach through distance and make the past obey his present understanding. But the road had already taken the messenger. The ink had already dried. The words had already begun their journey. Still, something was possible. Not everything, but something. He could stop running in the rain after what had already gone. He could let the warmth in his hands remind him that he was still alive, still able to choose the next word with more care. He could wait for morning. He could write from a quieter place. The tea woman cleaned the counter. The charcoal stove gave a low, red glow. The man finally removed his wet hat and placed it beside him, brim upward, holding a few drops of rain like tiny dark stars. When the shelter closed for the night, he did not continue down the road. He asked if he could sleep under the side roof until dawn. The tea woman gave him an old mat and a folded cloth. He bowed, not deeply, but with real weariness and real thanks. Before he lay down, he looked once more at the cup with the chipped rim. Its flaw had not stopped it from holding warmth. And this, too, stayed with him. Perhaps there is a letter inside you tonight. Not always a letter made of paper. Sometimes it is a sentence you wish you could unsay. Sometimes it is a look you wish you had softened. Sometimes it is an email already sent, a choice already made, a moment already passed through the gate of time. The mind wants to run after it in the rain. It says, if I think hard enough, I can catch what has already left. If I replay it one more time, I can make it different. If I punish myself enough, I will become innocent again. But regret is not repair. Regret may show you where tenderness is needed. It may teach the hand to become gentler tomorrow. But when it keeps you awake, long after the lesson has been received, it becomes only another stirring of the cup. Tonight, you do not have to shout at the water until it becomes still. You may let the motion fade. Feel your breath now as warm tea. It enters slowly. It leaves slowly. It asks no permission from the past. It does not argue with the old letter. It simply comes and goes and comes again. Let the tongue rest in the mouth. Let the space behind the eyes grow quiet. Let the shoulders feel less like a roof holding up rain. Let the hands soften, as if they are wrapped around a cup that is already warm enough. Whatever was sent today has been sent. Whatever can be repaired tomorrow can wait for tomorrow's hands. And whatever cannot be repaired may still be met with humility, patience, and a heart that is learning not to strike itself in the dark. The man under the side roof slept with the sound of rain near his ear. He did not know what answer would come from his letter. He did not know whether forgiveness would be easy or slow, or not arrive in the form he hoped. But for one night, he stopped chasing the messenger. The road could be the road. The tea could cool. The rain could finish falling. And just before sleep took him, he heard the tea woman inside the shelter placing the last cup upside down on the wooden shelf. A small sound, careful and complete. That sound traveled into his dream, like a reminder that not all completion belongs to the mind. Some completion is only a cup being set down. Some peace is only the end of chasing, and beneath that peace, another road waited. Not for his regret, but for his rested feet. Beneath that peace, another road waited. Not for his regret, but for his rested feet. At dawn, the valley was pale and full of mist. The rain had stopped, but every leaf still carried a little memory of water. The man from the tea shelter rose before the sun was fully above the ridge. His robe was still damp at the hem. His sandals were stiff with mud. Yet his face had changed, in the small way a face changes after even one honest night of sleep. He thanked the tea woman, who was already sweeping the threshold with a short broom. She did not ask him what he would do. She did not press wisdom into his hands. She only gave him a little packet of dry tea leaves wrapped in paper. "For the next letter," she said. He bowed and walked down the road. Not far from the tea shelter, the path bent toward an old stone bridge. Beneath it, a stream moved over flat rocks, clear from the mountain rain. Beside the bridge stood a boy with a basket of pears. The basket had tipped over. Pears had rolled into the mud, into the grass, between stones, and 2 had fallen into the stream. The boy was crying in the open, helpless way of children. He tried to gather 1 pear, then saw another floating away, then dropped the first one again. His small hands were muddy, his sleeves were wet. Every movement made the loss seem larger. The man stopped. Only yesterday, he might have hurried past, pulled by his own trouble. But the night under the side roof had slowed something in him. He set down his traveling bundle and knelt beside the boy. "Let us pick up the ones that are still here," he said. The boy shook his head hard. "2 are gone." "Yes," the man said. "They were the best ones." "Perhaps. My mother will be angry." The man looked at the stream. The 2 pears had already moved beyond the bridge, turning softly in the current. They did not look frightened. They looked carried. The boy lunged toward the water, but the man placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. "The stream is faster than your feet," he said. The boy cried harder. "Then I have lost them." "Yes," the man said again, and his voice was not cold. It was kind because it did not argue with what was true. "Those 2 are gone, so we will not lose the others by chasing them." Together, they gathered the pears that remained. Some were bruised, some were clean, some had grass stuck to their skins. The man wiped them carefully with the edge of his sleeve. The boy watched him, still breathing unevenly. When the basket was nearly full again, the man picked up 1 bruised pear and turned it in his hand. "This one is hurt," the boy said. "A little," the man answered. "But it may still be sweet." He gave it to the boy. The boy bit into it, partly from sadness, partly from hunger. Juice ran down his chin. His crying slowed. The pear was not perfect, but it was sweet. The boy seemed almost surprised, as if sweetness should have disappeared when the basket fell. The man smiled faintly. They carried the basket together to the edge of the bridge. The boy looked downstream once more. The lost pears were nowhere to be seen. "My mother will still count them," he whispered. "Then tell her the truth," said the man. 2 went with the water. The rest came home. The boy looked at him for a long time, as children do when a sentence is plain enough to enter without knocking. Then he lifted the basket and walked toward the village. The man remained by the bridge. He listened to the stream. He thought of his letter. He thought of words already carried beyond his reach. He thought of the 2 pears turning in the current, not as enemies, not as punishments, but as things that had left because leaving was now their path. He took the packet of tea leaves from his sleeve and held it lightly. Then he continued down the road. "Tonight, you may have your own basket overturned somewhere in the mind. A plan did not stay upright. A mood changed. A person misunderstood you. A hope rolled away before you could catch it. Perhaps 2 pears are already in the water, and all evening the mind has been running along the bank, trying to reach them. But when we chase what is already gone, we often drop what is still here. This is not blame. It is only a gentle seeing. The mind believes that if it refuses to accept a loss, it is being loyal. It believes that if it keeps reaching, keeps replaying, keeps tightening, then somehow love will be proven. But love is not always proven by chasing. Sometimes love is proven by turning back to what remains and carrying it with care. There are still pears in the basket. There is still breath in the body. There is still warmth under the blanket. There is still this quiet room, this moment, this chance to stop running along the stream in the dark. Let the two that are gone go with the water for tonight. You do not have to bless the loss. You do not have to pretend it did not hurt. You do not have to turn it into a lesson before the heart is ready. Just notice the small mercy that not everything was lost. Feel the back of your body now. Let the mattress receive you the way the earth receives fallen fruit, without asking it to become unfallen. Let the shoulder blades soften. Let the spine lengthen and rest. Let the belly loosen from the effort of reaching downstream. The breath comes like water over stones. It does not reverse. It does not need to. It simply moves. And in its moving, it teaches the body how to stop holding the past in one place. Perhaps tomorrow there will be an apology to make, or a task to gather, or a truth to speak. Perhaps there will be a basket to carry carefully back to the village. But tonight, the work is smaller. Pick up what is still here. Set down what the water has taken. Let the bruised fruit be sweet enough. The stream below the old bridge continued all day, past reeds, past stones, past the roots of willow trees. By evening, one of the pears that had floated away came to rest near a bend where a deer sometimes drank. A bird pecked at it. Ants found it. The fruit that the boy called lost was not lost to the world. It had only left his basket. And there are many things like this. They leave the shape we wanted them to keep. They leave our hand, our plan, our name, our story. We think this means they have become meaningless. But the world is wider than our basket. The night is wider than the mind. And somewhere in that wideness, what you cannot fix may still be held. Far from the bridge, beyond the village road, there was a temple garden, built on a slope where the mountain met the clouds. In spring, the garden was full of young green leaves. In summer, insects sang there until the air itself seemed woven from sound. In winter, snow rested on the stones like folded cloth. But in late autumn, the garden belonged to the wind. Leaves came down from the maples in red, brown, gold, and dark orange. They gathered in corners. They filled the shallow steps. They caught in the roof tiles and lay across the moss. Every morning, the monks swept them away. And every afternoon, more leaves arrived, as if the trees had only been waiting for the broom to finish. In that temple lived an old gardener named Soren. He was not a teacher. He did not give talks in the meditation hall. He did not sit in a place of honor. He rose earlier than most, tied a faded cloth around his head, and walked into the garden with a bamboo broom over one shoulder. He knew each stone by the sound it made under sweeping. One year, a young monk was assigned to help him. The young monk wanted to do the work well. He swept carefully. He gathered the leaves into neat piles. He carried them to the compost pit. He brushed the paths until not one stem remained. When visitors came, they admired the clean stones and the quiet lines of the garden. But autumn has no interest in our neatness. One afternoon, just as the young monk finished clearing the main path, a wind came over the ridge. It moved through the maples with a deep, rushing sound. In a few moments, leaves scattered everywhere again. They landed on the stones, on the swept gravel, on the young monk's sleeves, even in the empty basket beside him. He stared at the garden. His face tightened. Soren leaned on his broom and watched the wind move through the branches. The young monk said, "It is useless." Soren looked at him. "What is useless?" "Sweeping," said the young monk. "I clear the path and the leaves return. I make it clean and the wind ruins it." Soren smiled, but only a little. "The wind is not ruining the garden." The young monk pushed his broom hard across the stones. "Then what is it doing?" "Autumn," Soren said. The young monk did not like this answer. He wanted a method. He wanted a rule. He wanted an older person to say, "Sweep this way, and the leaves will stop falling." But Soren only walked to the edge of the path and sat down on a flat stone. After a moment, he patted the space beside him. The young monk remained standing. Soren said, "If you keep sweeping while angry at the trees, your body will be tired before evening." The young monk slowly sat. Together, they watched the leaves fall. At first, the young monk saw only disorder. A leaf landed where he had just swept. Another spun into the clean gravel. Another dropped silently into the water basin. Each one seemed to say, "Your work is not finished. Your effort is not enough. Begin again." But after a while, because Soren did not speak, the young monk began to hear more. He heard the dry whisper of leaves touching stone. He heard the bamboo knocking softly near the gate. He heard a crow calling from the far pine. He saw that some leaves fell quickly, some slowly, some in circles, some straight down. One red leaf landed on Soren's old broom and stayed there, trembling. Soren lifted the broom carefully and let the leaf slide to the ground. Then he said, "We sweep to care for the path, not to defeat the season." The young monk breathed out. Something in him, something that had been pushing against the whole mountain, became a little quieter. They sat until the wind passed. Then Soren stood, picked up his broom, and began again. But now he moved differently. He did not hurry. He did not strike the leaves as if they were enemies. He swept one small area, then another. The young monk followed him, and for the first time that day, the work felt less like an argument. By evening, leaves still remained in the garden. Some lay under the maples. Some rested near the bell tower. Some floated in the water basin where the sky looked back at them. The young monk looked at Soren, unsure whether he had failed. Soren hung the brooms under the eaves. "Enough for today," he said. "But the path is not clear." "Enough for today," Soren repeated. The young monk looked again. The path was not perfect, but it could be walked. The garden was not empty of leaves, but it was beautiful. The season had not been conquered, but it had been met. That night, while the temple slept, more leaves fell. No one stopped them. No one needed to. Perhaps your mind has been sweeping leaves all evening. A thought falls, and you clear it. Another falls. A worry lands where you had just found peace. A memory drifts into the clean path. A plan for tomorrow spins down from nowhere. You may think, "I already dealt with this. Why is it here again?" But the mind has seasons. Some days are clear. Some evenings are full of falling leaves. Some nights bring old fears down from branches you thought were bare. You do not have to defeat the season tonight. You only need to care for the path enough to lie down. This is a quiet kind of wisdom. Not giving up, not forcing, not pretending the leaves are not there. Simply knowing when the day's sweeping is complete. Let the body understand this. Let your forehead smooth, as if wind has passed through the branches and moved on. Let the corners of the eyes release. Let the shoulders stop sweeping the whole garden. Let the elbows become heavy. Let the hands rest open. No broom, no tool, no task. The breath moves through you like wind through autumn trees. A thought may fall. Let it fall. A sound may come from the room. Let it come. A feeling may appear. Stay a little while and drift somewhere else. Let the path be walkable, not perfect. There is no need to clear the entire garden before sleep. You are allowed to rest with a few leaves still lying in the corners of the heart. The old gardener knew this. He had watched many autumns. He had watched young monks become impatient with falling things, then tired, then humble, then gentle. He had learned that peace was not a garden without leaves. Peace was a hand that could sweep without hatred and stop without guilt. Late that night, moonlight entered the temple garden. It touched the stones, the moss, the water basin, the brooms beneath the eaves. It touched the leaves that remained. They did not look like failure in the moonlight. They looked like autumn. And the mountain, which had never asked to be fixed, slept deeply under the trees. Beyond that mountain, on the far side of a narrow pass, there was a village known for clay bowls. The bowls were plain. Some were pale as river sand. Some were dark as wet earth. Some carried the faint green of moss after rain. They were shaped by hands that knew the patience of turning, pressing, smoothing, and waiting for fire to do what hands could not do. In that village lived a potter named Emmy. She was quiet, not because she had nothing to say, but because clay had taught her that too many movements can spoil a shape. Her house stood beside a small kiln, and behind the kiln was a plum tree that leaned toward the roof. Each morning, Emmy sat at her wheel before the village was fully awake. She placed a lump of clay in the center, wet her hands, and began to turn. The clay rose slowly beneath her fingers. Some days it obeyed. Some days it leaned, collapsed, or tore. She never shouted at it. She simply gathered it, pressed it down, and began again. But there was one bowl she loved more than the others. It had come out of the kiln in early spring, when plum blossoms were falling into the yard. Its shape was not perfect, but it had a softness she could not repeat. The rim bent slightly inward, as if the bowl were listening. The glaze had pooled at the bottom in a deep blue circle, like a small night sky. Emmy kept it on a shelf by the window. She drank tea from it when the workday ended. One evening, a neighbor brought her young daughter to the workshop. The child was lively, full of questions. She asked why clay was gray before it became brown, why fire made things stronger, why some bowls rang when tapped and others made a dull sound. Emmy answered patiently. Then the child saw the blue-bottomed bowl. She reached for it before anyone could stop her. Her sleeve caught the edge. The bowl slipped from the shelf and fell to the floor. The sound was brief, not loud, not dramatic, only a single hard note, and then several smaller ones as the pieces spread across the wood. The child froze. Her mother gasped. Emmy stood very still. For a moment, the room seemed to hold its breath. Outside, a plum petal dropped from the tree and landed against the window frame. The child began to cry. "I broke it," she said. Her mother bowed again and again, already reaching for money she did not have much of. "Please forgive us. We will pay. We will replace it." Emmy looked at the pieces on the floor. The blue circle had split into 3 curved fragments. The listening rim was broken in several places. The bowl that had held her evening tea was no longer a bowl. Something in her chest tightened. She wanted, for one sharp second, to make the room return to the moment before the child reached. She wanted the shelf, the bowl, the still air, the unbroken shape. She wanted her own hand to have moved faster, but the pieces did not return to the shelf. The child cried harder. Emmy knelt. She picked up one fragment, then another. She did not hurry. She placed each piece on a cloth. The mother kept apologizing, but Emmy lifted one hand gently. "Enough," she said. "The bowl has broken. Let us not break the child also." The mother stopped speaking. The child looked at Emmy through tears. Emmy showed her one piece of the bowl. "See?" she said softly. "The blue is still blue." The child sniffed. "It cannot hold tea now," Emmy continued. "But perhaps it can hold something else." She carried the pieces to the back of the house. Near the plum tree, there was a shallow stone basin where rainwater gathered. Emmy arranged the fragments around the edge of the basin, blue sides facing upward. Then she picked a few fallen plum blossoms from the ground and placed them among the broken pieces. The child watched. In the dim evening, the broken glaze caught the last light. The pieces did not become a bowl again. They did not pretend nothing had happened. But around the water, with the blossoms resting between them, they seemed to have entered another life. The child whispered, "It is still beautiful." Emmy nodded. "Yes, different now." That night, after the neighbor and child had gone home, Emmy sat beside the basin for a long time. She missed the bowl. She missed drinking tea from it. She missed the way it had warmed between her palms. Acceptance did not remove the ache, but it removed the extra wound of fighting what could no longer be unbroken. Under the plum tree, the fragments held moonlight. A small beetle walked across one curved piece and paused in the blue glaze as if standing at the edge of a tiny sky. Perhaps something in you feels broken tonight. Not destroyed, not beyond care, but changed in a way you did not choose. A plan may have cracked. A friendship may feel different. Your confidence may have slipped from its shelf. A version of the day you hoped for may be lying in pieces somewhere inside the chest. And the fixing mind says, put it back exactly as it was. Hurry. Restore the old shape. Make the crack disappear before anyone sees. But some things do not return to their earlier form. This can be painful to admit. Zen does not ask you to pretend that brokenness is pleasant. It only invites you to see clearly, without adding the second pain of refusing the first. A bowl is broken. A feeling is here. A shape has changed. The breath is still possible. Tonight, you do not have to know what the broken pieces will become. You only need to stop cutting your hands by trying to force them back together in the dark. Let your body become careful now. Let the jaw unclench as if setting down a shard. Let the throat soften. Let the chest make room for what has changed. Let the belly rise and fall without needing to restore the old shape of anything. Your hands can rest. Your eyes can rest behind the eyelids. Your heart does not have to be repaired before it is allowed to be held. The broken bowl beside the rain basin did not hold tea again. But it held blossoms. It held moonlight. It held the child's lesson that a mistake did not make her unlovable. It held Emmy's grief without turning it into anger. And perhaps, one day, what feels broken in you will hold something you cannot yet imagine. Not tonight. Tonight, it is enough to place the pieces gently where they are. It is enough to let the blue remain blue. Near the village of clay bowls, there was a narrow river that moved quietly between fields of barley and low grass. In the dry months, children could step across it on stones. In the rains, it widened and turned brown, carrying twigs, leaves, and sometimes whole branches from the hills. A small ferry crossed this river, where the road bent toward the southern market. The ferry was little more than a flat wooden boat tied to a thick rope stretched from bank to bank. It had no sail. It did not fight the water. The ferryman pulled the rope hand over hand, and the boat moved across with the patience of something that had learned the river's moods. The ferryman's name was Daichi. His beard had become white in uneven patches, and his back was slightly bent from years of leaning into weather. He knew the sound of anxious footsteps before he saw the traveler who made them. One evening, just as the clouds were turning violet above the fields, a woman arrived at the ferry landing, carrying a bundle under one arm and a sleeping child against her shoulder. She was breathing hard. "Can you cross quickly?" she asked. Daichi looked at the river. It was high from 2 days of rain, but not dangerous. "We can cross steadily," he said. "Quickly," she repeated. "My brother is waiting on the other side. I am late. If I had left earlier, if the wheel had not broken, if the road had not been mud, if the child had not cried." The child stirred against her neck. Daichi untied the boat. The woman stepped in, still speaking. "I should have planned better. I should have packed yesterday. I should not have trusted the old cart. My brother will think I do not care. He will be angry. Perhaps he is already gone." The ferry moved from the bank. The rope creaked softly through Daichi's hands. At once, the woman looked toward the far side and said, "Can you pull harder?" Daichi continued at the same pace. She shifted the child higher on her shoulder. "Please, I must get there." Daichi looked at the water passing under the boat. "If I pull against the river too hard, the boat turns. But we are moving so slowly." "Yes," he said. She stared at him, frustrated and frightened. "Do you not understand? I have to fix this." Daichi did not answer immediately. He let the boat reach the middle of the river, where the current was strongest. Then he stopped pulling for one breath and pointed to a branch floating nearby. It spun once, caught in a small turn of water, then loosened and moved on. "See that branch?" he said. The woman looked, though her face still held worry. "It is not choosing the river," Daichi said, "but it is being carried." She frowned. "I am not a branch." "No," he said. "You are a mother holding a sleeping child. That is why you must not become a storm." The words were simple, and because they were simple, they entered. The woman looked down at the child. The little one's cheek was pressed against her robe, mouth slightly open, breathing in tiny, warm waves. All through the muddy road, the broken wheel, the rushing, the worry, the child had trusted the shoulder beneath her. The woman's eyes filled, not from sadness exactly, but from the sudden recognition that her fear had been tightening around the very person she was trying to protect. Daichi began pulling again. "Your brother may be angry," he said. "He may not be. He may have waited. He may have gone. We do not know from the middle of the river." The woman closed her eyes briefly. The ferry creaked onward. For the first time since she had arrived, she did not ask to go faster. There are places in life where we are already in the middle of the river. The old bank is behind us. The new bank is not yet under our feet. We cannot return to leave earlier. We cannot leap ahead to explain ourselves before we arrive. We are only here, moving across, with the current beneath us and the rope in our hands. The fixing mind hates the middle. It wants to be on one side or the other. It wants to know the answer, finish the apology, complete the work, secure the outcome, calm the other person, close the open door. But many nights are river nights. The body is tired. The far bank cannot be reached by thinking faster. Tonight, perhaps you are also in the middle of a river. Something has begun, but not resolved. Something has changed, but not settled. Someone may respond tomorrow. A result may come later. A plan may unfold slowly. You may be between who you were and who you are becoming. You do not have to turn the bolt by pulling too hard. Feel this in your body. Let the forehead stop looking for the far bank. Let the eyes rest behind darkness. Let the tongue loosen from the roof of the mouth. Let the shoulders remember that carrying care is not the same as becoming a storm. Let the arms and hands become quiet, as if the rope can move through them without struggle. The breath is the ferry tonight. Inhale, and the boat moves a little. Exhale, and the river moves beneath it. No single breath has to finish the crossing. No single thought has to deliver you safely to morning. The crossing happens by small, steady movements, many of them too gentle to notice. When the ferry reached the other side, Daichi guided it against the bank with one slow push of his pole. The woman stepped onto the damp earth. Her brother was not there. For a moment, fear returned to her face. Then she saw a lantern hanging outside a house beyond the willow trees. A boy stood under it, waving both arms. "Mother sent me," he called. "Uncle is waiting inside. He said the river would be slow tonight." The woman held the child closer and laughed once, softly, through all the worry that had not been needed. She turned back to thank the ferryman, but Daichi was already pushing the boat away from the bank. The rope creaked. The river received him again. He did not wave. He only crossed back into the dimming light as he had crossed many times before, trusting the rope, the water, and the pace that would not overturn the boat. And here, in your own quiet room, you may trust a slower crossing too. The problem does not have to be solved from the middle of the river. The body does not have to become a storm. Morning is a far bank. The breath is already carrying you. Long after the ferry disappeared into the dimming light, the river kept moving. It did not hurry for those who were late. It did not pause for those who were afraid. It did not become cruel because people misunderstood its pace. It simply flowed, holding sky, reeds, fallen leaves, and the reflection of any face that leaned close enough to look. On the northern bank of that same river, a footpath led toward a small shrine hidden among pine trees. Travelers did not always notice it. The roof was low, the bell was small, moss grew thick on the stone foxes near the entrance, and the offering box had been repaired so many times that no plank matched another. A caretaker lived there alone. Her name was Hannah. She was neither young nor old in the way people count years. Her hair had begun to silver, but her steps were steady. Every morning she washed the stone basin, swept pine needles from the path, and lit one candle in the shrine before anyone came. She had one habit the villagers found unusual. At dusk, before closing the little gate, she walked around the shrine grounds with a lantern and checked every small thing. The latch on the storehouse, the ashes in the brazier, the water jar, the candle shelf, the old bell rope, the paper charms under the roof. If a leaf had fallen into the basin, she removed it. If a wick leaned sideways, she straightened it. If a pebble had rolled onto the path, she placed it near the edge. People said, "Hannah is careful," and she was. But sometimes, care becomes a room with no door. One winter evening, the wind rose suddenly from the valley. It slipped between the pines and made the shrine roof sigh. Hannah was about to close the gate when she heard the bell rope knock once against the beam. She went back to tie it. Then she noticed the candle flame bending. She shielded it with a clay cover. Then she noticed that the water jar was only half full. She carried another bucket from the well. Then she noticed that snowmelt had gathered near the step. She brushed it away. Each task was small. Each one seemed reasonable. But after one thing came another, and another, and another, until the sky was black and her fingers were stiff with cold. From the road, an old woodcutter called, "Hannah, are you still awake?" She looked up, startled. He stood beyond the gate with a bundle of pine branches on his back. His beard was full of frost. He had known her since she was a child and spoke to her without ceremony.
"There is too much wind tonight,"
she said. "If I leave one thing undone, something may break." The woodcutter set down his bundle. He looked at the shrine, the pines, the low roof, the little bell moving in the dark. "Something may break even if you stay awake," he said. Hannah frowned. The words felt unkind at first, but the woodcutter did not say them harshly. He only lifted his shoulders against the cold. "And something may remain whole even if you sleep." The bell rope moved again, touching the beam with a soft wooden sound. Hannah listened. The wind was not asking her permission to be wind. The pines were not waiting for her to hold every needle in place. The old roof had survived storms before her birth. The candle, even with its clay cover, would eventually go out. The water in the jar would freeze or not freeze according to the night, not according to her worry. She suddenly felt how tired she was, not only in her hands, deeper than that. Tired from believing that her attention was the thin wall between order and disaster. The woodcutter picked up his bundle again. "Close the gate," he said. "The shrine also knows how to spend a night." Hannah stood still for a long moment. Then she bowed to the shrine, not as a performance, but as an apology for thinking it depended entirely on her fear. She walked to the gate, closed it, and slid the wooden bar into place. The sound was plain, final enough for night. Inside her small room, she warmed her hands around a cup of barley tea. The wind continued. The bell rope knocked once, then again, then rested. Hannah almost rose. Her body knew the old movement, but she stayed seated. She breathed. She let the sound be only a sound. By morning, one paper charm had torn loose and landed in the snow. The candle had gone out. A pine branch had fallen near the basin, and the shrine was still there. Hannah picked up the torn charm and smiled, not because damage had become pleasant, but because the world had not ended from one loose piece of paper. Perhaps you have been walking around the shrine of your life tonight with a lantern, checking the same worry again, testing the same latch, returning to the same thought, looking at the same future from one more angle, wondering if love will break, if work will fall apart, if your body will fail you, if tomorrow will punish you for resting now. This checking may have begun as care. There is tenderness in wanting things to be safe. There is love inside many of your worries. But the mind can turn care into endless patrol until the body has no room to sleep. Tonight, you may close the gate. Not forever, not carelessly, only for the night. Let the shrine of your life spend a few hours without your lantern moving through every corner. Feel your feet now, even if they are under blankets. Let the soles soften. Let the ankles loosen. Let the calves become heavy. Let the knees stop preparing to stand. Let the thighs sink into the bed. Your whole body does not need to rise and check again. A sound may happen. A thought may knock like a bell rope in the wind. You can hear it without obeying it. The breath comes in, quiet as a caretaker returning to her room. The breath goes out, quiet as a gate closing for the night. If something small has torn loose, morning will see it. If one branch has fallen, morning hands can move it. If one candle has gone out, another can be lit when the sun returns. For now, the shrine is still standing. For now, the world can be trusted to spend a little time outside your control. And within that trust, your body may begin to remember an older safety. Not the safety of everything being checked, but the safety of being allowed to rest. In the village below the pine shrine, there was a small house where a widow named Myra lived with her son. Her husband had died 3 winters earlier, and since then she had become known for mending other people's clothes. Robes torn on branches, sleeves burned near cooking fires, children's trousers split at the knee, traveling bags worn thin at the corner, all came to her low table by the window. Myra's stitches were almost invisible. She had patient eyes and fingers that seemed to understand cloth. People trusted her with garments they were not ready to throw away. She knew where to place a patch so it did not pull. She knew how to follow an old seam without forcing the fabric into a new shape. But when evening came, after other people's mending had been returned, Myra opened a wooden chest and took out her husband's winter robe. It was dark blue, faded at the cuffs, with one torn place near the shoulder. He had been wearing it during his last illness. For 3 years, she had told herself she would mend it. For 3 years, she had taken out the robe, threaded a needle, touched the torn cloth, and then folded it again. The tear was not difficult. She'd repaired worse damage for neighbors in less than an hour. But each time she tried to sew it, something in her chest tightened, as if the needle were not entering cloth, but entering the day she had lost him. One night, her son came in carrying a small lamp. He was old enough now to notice grief without knowing what to do with it. "Mother," he said, "why do you keep taking that robe out?" Mira looked at the torn shoulder. "Because it needs mending." "Then why do you not mend it?" She smiled faintly. "Because I am not ready." The boy sat beside her. The room was quiet, except for the tiny sound of the lamp flame. After a while, he said, "Does father mind?" Myra closed her eyes. For years, she had imagined the robe waiting like an accusation. Unmended cloth, unfinished love. As if her husband's memory stood beside the chest each night, asking why she had not completed this one final task. But when her son asked that simple question, she saw another possibility. Perhaps the robe was not accusing her. Perhaps it had only been resting. She placed her hand over the torn shoulder. The fabric was cool beneath her palm. It did not pull away. It did not demand. It did not say, "Fix me now," or "Prove that you loved him." It was only cloth, holding the shape of someone gone. Myra breathed in slowly. "No," she said at last. "I do not think he minds." The boy leaned against her side. They sat that way for a long time. The needle lay on the table. The thread remained uncut. Outside, the wind moved lightly against the shutters. Then Mira folded the robe, not as something avoided, but as something honored. She placed it back in the chest and closed the lid. The next morning, she did not mend it, nor the next. But something had changed. The robe was no longer a task that proved her failure. It had become a quiet place where grief could rest without being forced into usefulness. Many months later, when plum blossoms opened near the road, Myra took the robe out again. This time, she did not feel the old tightening. She threaded the needle, touched the cloth, and began. Her stitches were slow. Some were uneven because her eyes filled once or twice, but she did not stop. She mended the tear, not to finish grief, not to close love, but simply because that morning her hands were ready. When she was done, she folded the robe and placed it by the window, where sunlight touched the old blue fabric. Nothing dramatic happened. No voice came from the air. No wound disappeared. Yet the room felt easier to breathe in. Perhaps there is something in you that you keep calling unfinished. A grief that has not become peaceful. A memory that has not softened on your schedule. A forgiveness you are not ready to give. A dream you still cannot look at without pain. A part of your heart you keep trying to mend because you believe rest is only allowed after repair. But not every tear must be sown tonight. Some things need warmth before they need thread. Some things need to be held without being worked on. This is a quiet form of compassion. To stop turning every tender place into a task. To stop asking the heart to heal quickly so the mind can feel successful. To let grief be grief, love be love, and time be time. Feel this in the center of your chest now. Not as pressure, not as an order to relax, only as space. Let the ribs widen gently with the breath. Let the heart rest inside the body without being examined. Let the shoulders sink away from the ears. Let the arms lie heavy beside you or across the blanket. You do not have to mend your whole life before morning. You do not have to prove your love by staying awake with pain. You do not have to make every old robe useful again tonight. The breath enters like a needle that does not pierce. It passes through the cloth of the body softly, joining nothing by force. The breath leaves, and the body becomes a little quieter. There may be tears that still wait in the chest. Let them wait without shame. There may be names that still ache. Let them be names, not assignments. There may be memories folded in a wooden chest inside you. Let the lid close gently for the night. And if some small thought says, "But what if I never mend it?" you do not need to answer. The question may sit beside the lamp like a moth, touching light and shadow. You can let it be there without following it around the room. Tonight is not asking for the whole future. tonight is only asking for one softer breath, then another. When the hands are ready, they will know. When the morning is kind, it will come. Until then, the robe may rest, the thread may rest. The one who loved may rest too. In the season when the plum blossoms had fallen and the young leaves were bright, Myra's son began to carry mended clothes back to the villagers. He liked this work because it gave him a reason to walk slowly through every lane and hear the small sounds of the village waking. A bucket lowered into a well, a knife tapping against a cutting board, a goat complaining from behind a fence, sandals on packed earth. One morning, he carried a repaired traveling bag to an old ink maker who lived near the edge of the village. The ink maker's house smelled of soot, pine oil, water, and stone. Black sticks of ink lay drying on shelves. Brushes hung from a beam. Beside the window was a flat grinding stone, worn smooth by years of circular movement. The ink maker was named June. His hands were always marked with darkness, not from dirt, but from the work of making something that could later become words, drawings, records, poems, letters, apologies, and accounts. He had spent his life helping other people put marks into the world. That day, June was sitting before a sheet of paper with a brush in his hand. The boy placed the repaired bag near the door and waited to be noticed. June did not look up. He dipped the brush, touched it to the paper, made one small stroke, and stopped. His face tightened. He lifted the paper, frowned, and set it aside. Another sheet. Another dip of the brush. Another stroke. Again, he stopped. By the time he saw the boy standing there, 5 sheets of paper lay beside him, each with only a few black marks.
Your bag is mended,
the boy said. June blinked, as if returning from far away. Ah, yes. Thank you. Tell your mother her hands are honest. The boy bowed. But he did not leave at once. Children often see clearly because they have not yet learned which questions adults prefer to hide. Why do you throw away the paper? He asked. June looked embarrassed. The first line is wrong. The boy glanced at the sheets. Only the first line? If the first line is wrong, the whole page is spoiled. The boy considered this. Then he pointed to one sheet. It looks like a branch. June almost smiled. It is not meant to be a branch. What is it meant to be? June was quiet. For many months, he had been trying to write a poem for his older brother, who had died before winter. The poem was not for a public gathering. It was not for praise. It was only to place near the small family altar. Yet every line he began felt false. Too sad, too polished, too plain, too late, too much, not enough. He had made ink for thousands of letters, but now he could not write one true page for his own grief. The boy looked at the discarded sheets again. Then he picked up the one that looked like a branch. May I have this? June shrugged. It is ruined. The boy carried it to the window. Outside, a young vine had begun to climb the wall. Its small green tendrils reached in uncertain directions, curling around empty air before finding wood. The boy held the paper beside the vine. It looks like this part, he said. June stood and came closer. The accidental mark did look like a vine tendril, reaching without knowing where it would hold. For a while, the old ink maker said nothing. Then he sat down, took the same sheet back, and did something he had not allowed himself to do for months. He continued from the mistake. He added a thin curve near the first dark stroke, then a leaf, then another, smaller leaf. The brush moved slowly. The page that had been spoiled became a picture of a vine reaching beside an empty doorway. When he finished, June did not write a poem under it. He wrote only his brother's name. Then he placed the brush down. The room became very still. The boy did not understand everything, but he understood enough to stay quiet. June looked at the page for a long time. It was not the poem he had tried to write. It did not explain his brother. It did not fix death. It did not make grief elegant. But it was true in a way his perfect beginnings had not been. A reaching line, a living vine, a name. Sometimes the first line is not wrong. Sometimes it is only not what we expected. Perhaps tonight you are looking at a page in your mind and thinking the first line has ruined everything. The day began badly. The conversation began badly. The plan began badly. The year began in a way you did not choose. Your mood turned dark before you could stop it. Your effort came out crooked. Your heart made a mark you would not have made if you had been calmer, wiser, more rested. And now the fixing mind wants to tear out the whole page. It says, because this part is imperfect, nothing good can come. Because I stumbled, I have failed. Because I am not the person I hoped to be today, I cannot rest until I redraw myself. But the page is not asking to be perfect tonight. It is only asking not to be torn in anger. There is a gentle Zen seeing here. The mind suffers when it demands that life become the shape it pictured before the brush touched paper. But life is always touching the paper. A sound happens. A word happens. A loss happens. A tired reaction happens. Then the next breath arrives, asking quietly, what now? Not what would have been perfect. Not how do we erase every mark. Only, what now, with this line already here? Feel your face soften around this. Let the little muscles near the mouth release their effort to correct the whole expression of your life. Let the eyes rest as if no page needs to be inspected. Let the shoulders become loose cloth. Let the hands open, as though the brush has been placed down beside the inkstone. You do not have to redraw yourself tonight. You do not have to tear out the day. You do not have to make a beautiful poem from pain before you are allowed to sleep. A crooked line may remain a crooked line, or later, with patience, it may become a vine. You do not need to decide now. The darkness outside the window is not grading your page. The pillow is not waiting for a perfect first sentence. June left the page by the window until the ink dried. In the morning, a small beam of light touched the painted vine, and for a moment, the black line looked almost green. He wrapped the paper carefully and carried it to the family altar. He did not feel finished with grief, but he no longer felt that every beginning had to be rejected. And in the quiet of your own night, this may be enough too. Let the first line be there. Let the next breath come without correction. Let the page rest open in the dark. Not every open thing is unfinished. Some things are simply being allowed to breathe. Beyond June's house, past the ink shelves and the vine at the window, the village road widened into a square where people gathered on market days. There were baskets of radishes, bundles of herbs, fish wrapped in wet leaves, sandals, rope, oil, needles, and small cakes made with millet and honey. In the early morning, the square sounded like footsteps, bargaining, laughter, and the gentle clatter of daily need. At the corner of the square stood a stall covered by a faded cloth roof. An old woman named Aya sold small rice cakes there. She shaped them before dawn, pressing each one between her palms, filling some with sweet bean paste, leaving others plain, then wrapping them in leaves so they stayed soft until noon. Aya had a granddaughter named Nori, who helped her when the market was busy. Nori was quick, bright-eyed, and serious about being useful. She counted coins carefully. She arranged the cakes in neat rows. She watched her grandmother's hands and tried to copy their calm. One market morning, a group of travelers arrived from the East Road. They were hungry and cold, and Aya's cakes sold faster than usual. Nori ran between the stall and the back table, bringing more leaves, more cakes, more small cups of warm water for customers waiting in line. In the middle of all this, she made a mistake. A merchant gave her a larger coin than she realized, and in her hurry, she returned too much change. By the time Aya noticed, the merchant had already gone into the crowd. Nori's face went pale. "I ruined the morning," she whispered. Aya looked at the coins in the box, then at the rows of cakes still waiting to be sold. "You made a mistake," she said. "I must find him. If you can see him, yes." Nori stood on a wooden crate and searched the square. Hats, baskets, shoulders, smoke from cooking fires, a boy leading a goat, 2 monks near the well, a woman carrying blue cloth. The merchant was gone. Nori climbed down, trembling. "We lost money." "Yes," said Aya. "You are not angry?" Aya picked up a cake and placed it on a leaf. "Anger will not bring back the coin." "But I should have known. I should have counted more slowly. I should not have rushed." Aya nodded. "That is true." The truth did not need to be sharpened. Nori's eyes filled with tears. "Then why are you still selling?" Aya handed a cake to the next customer, received payment, and placed the coin in the box. Only after the customer left did she answer, "Because one lost coin is not the whole stall." Nori looked at the wooden box, the cakes, the leaves, the steam rising from the kettle, the people still waiting. Her mistake felt enormous inside her chest, but outside her chest, the morning continued. A child still wanted a plain cake. An old man still warmed his hands around a cup. A traveler still smiled after tasting the sweet filling. Aya moved aside and made room for Nori beside her. "Stay," she said. "Count the next coin." Nori wiped her face with her sleeve. Her hands shook a little, but she stayed. The next customer gave 2 small coins. Nori counted them once, then again. She returned the correct change. Nothing magical happened. The lost coin did not appear. Her shame did not vanish. But the next right action was possible. And then another. By noon, nearly all the cakes were sold. Aya closed the coin box and sat on a low stool. Nori sat beside her, exhausted. "I still feel bad," the girl said. Aya opened the cloth bundle where she kept the few cakes that had broken while cooking. She gave one to Nori. "Feel bad gently," she said. Nori looked at her. Aya broke her own cake in half. "If you feel bad harshly, you will drop more coins. If you feel bad gently, You will learn and still be able to hold the next thing. Nori ate the broken cake. It tasted just like the others. Perhaps tonight you are holding one lost coin against your heart. One wrong word, one mischance, one careless moment, one small failure that the mind has made larger than the whole day. You may have done many things with care, but the mind has chosen the mistake, placed it under a bright lamp and said, "This is who you are." But one lost coin is not the whole stall. One mistake is not the whole life. One tired reaction is not the whole heart. This does not mean nothing matters. It does not mean carelessness is wise. It means that learning can happen without self-punishment. It means the next coin can still be counted. The next word can still be kinder. The next breath can still arrive clean, even after a difficult moment. The mind often believes that if it hurts you enough, it will make you better. But harshness does not create wisdom. It creates trembling hands. Gentle honesty sees the mistake clearly, then gives the body enough kindness to keep living. So let yourself feel bad, gently. If there is something to feel, no need to deny it. No need to turn away from it. Only remove the sharp edge. Let the feelings sit beside you, not on top of you. Let it be a teacher, not a judge. Feel the weight of your body now. Let the hips sink into the mattress. Let the legs grow heavy. Let the knees soften. Let the feet fall open or rest quietly beneath the covers. The body does not have to stand in the marketplace anymore. The day's coins do not need counting in the dark. The breath comes like warm water from a kettle. It fills the cup. It empties. It fills again. Nothing in this room is asking you to prove that you are good by staying awake with shame. The night is not a courtroom. The pillow is not a witness. The blanket is not keeping record of every coin lost or every word spoken imperfectly. You may place the coin box away. You may sit beside the old store after the market has closed. You may eat the broken cake and discover that even what cracked in the cooking can still be sweet. Aya and Nori walked home in the late afternoon, carrying the empty baskets between them. The road was quiet. Dust rose softly around their sandals. At the edge of the village, Nori looked back toward the market square. "I will count more slowly tomorrow," she said. Aya nodded. "That is enough." And it was. Not a vow to never fail again. Not a punishment. Not a story of becoming perfect. Only a small willingness to meet the next morning with a steadier hand. Tonight, that is enough for you too. A steadier hand can come after rest. A kinder word can come after rest. A clearer mind can come after rest. You do not have to fix the whole stall of your life before sleep. One coin was lost. Many things remain. Let the market close. Let the baskets be empty. Let the road home be quiet. As evening settled over the village, the last sounds of trade faded into the softer sounds of home. Wooden shutters closed one by one. Smoke lifted from kitchen roofs. Somewhere, a mother called a child indoors. Somewhere else, an old man rinsed a knife beneath the well water and laid it carefully on a cloth to dry. Above the village, a narrow path climbed through cedar trees to a small bell tower that belonged to no great temple. It stood alone on a stone platform halfway up the hill, where travelers could see it from the road below. The bell was bronze, darkened by years of weather, and it was rung only at dusk. The person who rang it was a quiet monk named Ren. Ren had one task each evening. He swept the stone platform, checked the rope for fraying, bowed once, and rang the bell 3 times. The sound rolled down into the village, crossed the rice fields, touched the river, and disappeared into the trees. People used it to know that the working day had ended. Children heard it and returned from play. Farmers heard it and lifted their tools. Even those who did not think of the bell still felt something in the body loosen when its sound entered the air. Ren loved the bell because it did not argue. When struck, it gave its whole voice. Then it faded. It never tried to keep the sound longer than sound could stay. One dusk, a young traveler climbed the hill just as Ren was preparing to ring. The traveler was thin, dusty, and restless, with a rolled sleeping mat tied to his back. He stood at the edge of the platform and watched Ren lift the wooden striker. The first sound of the bell opened wide and deep. The traveler closed his eyes. The sound spread over the hillside, became softer, 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 until only a faint trembling remained. Then that too disappeared. Ren lifted the striker again. Before he could ring the second time, the traveler said, "Where did it go?" Ren looked at him. "The sound," said the traveler. "It was here. Then it was not. Where did it go?" Ren smiled slightly. "Listen." He struck the bell again. The traveler listened with his whole face. The sound rose, filled the platform, touched the cedar branches, and moved away. He leaned forward as if he might follow it. When it faded, he looked almost troubled. "I wanted it to stay," he said. Ren rested the striker against the wooden frame. "Many people do. It was beautiful." "Yes." "Then why does it vanish?" Ren placed one hand lightly on the bell. "Because it is a bell sound." The traveler frowned. He had walked many roads seeking answers that felt larger than this. He wanted Ren to say something about heaven, or hidden worlds, or the secret path sound takes after leaving the ear. But the monk only stood beside the bell while evening gathered around them. After a while, Ren said, "If the bell tried to keep yesterday's sound, it could not ring tonight." The traveler looked at the bronze surface. It was still, empty of sound, ready. Ren lifted the striker and rang the 3rd time. This time, the traveler did not chase the fading. He let the sound come. He let it fill him. He let it leave. And when silence returned, it did not feel like loss in the same way. It felt like space. The village below was dim now. Lamps appeared in small windows. The traveler sat on the edge of the platform and watched the first stars come through the darkening sky. "I have been trying to keep many sounds," he said. Ren sat nearby. "A praise someone gave me. A blame someone threw at me. A promise I made before I understood its weight. A voice I loved. A word I regret. I keep listening for all of them, even when they are gone." Ren said nothing. The traveler touched the rope of his sleeping mat. "No wonder I am tired." Below them, the evening bell had already finished its work. No one in the village was asking where the sound had gone. They were lighting fires, washing bowls, setting tools by doors, lowering tired bodies onto mats. Ren finally said, "The ear can rest when it stops asking silence to return what has faded." The traveler stayed that night under the bell tower roof. The wind moved through the cedars. Once, in a dream, he heard the bell again, but this time it was not ringing outside him. It was only the breath, rising and falling, appearing and disappearing without needing to be kept. Perhaps tonight you are also listening for sounds that have already faded. A compliment you want to feel again. A criticism you cannot stop hearing. A voice from the past. A sentence that hurt. A sentence you wish you had said differently. The mind presses its ear against silence and asks it to give back what is no longer here. But a sound does not become more beautiful because we refuse to let it fade. Praise passes. Blame passes. Anger passes. Excitement passes. Fear passes. Even the thought that seems so loud tonight will thin, soften, and disappear into a wider quiet. This is not cold. It is mercy. If every sound stayed, the world would be unbearable. If every feeling stayed, the heart would have no room. If every mistake kept ringing forever, no one could sleep, no one could learn, no one could begin again. The bell teaches by emptying itself. So let your own inner bell become quiet now. Feel the ears resting. Feel the small muscles around them loosen. Let the face stop leaning toward the past. Let the jaw soften from holding unsaid words. Let the throat become easy, as if it does not need to answer anyone tonight. The breath rings once as it enters. Then it fades as it leaves. Another breath comes. Another breath goes. Nothing needs to be held between them. If a memory sounds inside you, let it sound. If it fades, let it fade. If silence comes after it, do not be afraid of the silence. Silence is not emptiness as punishment. It is the open space that allows the next gentle breath to arrive. The traveler woke before dawn. Ren was already sweeping the platform. The bell hung in the pale light, saying nothing, needing nothing, ready for another evening. The traveler bowed to it before leaving. He did not understand everything. But as he walked down the hill, he noticed that he was no longer trying to carry the bell's sound with him. He had heard it. He had loved it. He had let it go. And the morning seemed wide because of that letting go. In the same way, your night can become wide. Let the old sound fade. Let silence be kind. Let the bell of the mind rest until morning. From the hill of the bell tower, the path descended through cedar roots and pale stones, then entered a small grove where the air always smelled of damp earth. At the center of the grove stood an old well. Its round wall was made of stones fitted together without mortar, and moss lived between them like quiet, green breath. People came to this well when the village wells ran low in summer. They lowered wooden buckets, listened for the splash, and drew up water so cold it made the hands ache. No one knew who had first dug it. Some said monks from a forgotten hermitage. Some said farmers during a drought. Some said it had always been there, waiting under the trees until someone became thirsty enough to find it. An old woman named Kiku cared for the well. She did not own it. No one owned it. But every few days, she came with a small broom, cleared fallen needles from the stones, washed the rope, and made sure the wooden cover was set properly when night came. Kiku had a habit of looking into the well before she left. She liked to see the small circle of sky reflected in the dark water below. One afternoon, after many days of wind, she found the water covered with leaves. brown oak leaves, cedar needles, one yellow maple leaf, and a small broken twig floated on the surface. The reflection of the sky was scattered into pieces. Kiku set down her broom and sighed. She lowered the bucket, thinking she would gather the leaves. But when the bucket touched the water, the surface trembled. The leaves moved away, then returned. The more she tried to catch them, the more the water shook. The circle of sky disappeared completely. A young man who had come to fill 2 jars watched her struggle.
Grandmother, he said kindly, shall I climb down and clean it?
Kiku looked into the dark well. It was deep, slippery, and cold. She almost said yes, because the sight of the messy water troubled her. She wanted to see the sky again. She wanted the well to look as it had looked on quiet days. But then she noticed something. When she stopped moving the bucket, the water began to settle. The leaves drifted slowly to one side. The broken twig touched the stone wall and stayed there. Little by little, the sky returned in the center of the well. Not perfectly, but enough. Kiku rested both hands on the stone edge.
No,
She said.
not today.
The young man frowned. But the leaves are still there,
Yes,
said Kiku. Then the well is not clean. The water is still water. She lowered the bucket again, this time without trying to chase the leaves. She let it sink past them, down into the cooler depth. When she drew it up, the bucket was full and clear. A few leaves still floated above, but below them, the well had kept what was needed. The young man looked surprised. Kiku poured water into his jars. A surface can be troubled, she said, while the depth remains useful. He carried the jars away, thinking about this. That evening, Kiku stayed beside the well until dusk. The leaves still floated. The sky and the water came and went as the breeze touched it. Sometimes the reflection broke. Sometimes it returned. Kiku did not try to make it stay. Before leaving, she placed the wooden cover over the well. Under the cover, in darkness, the water rested with its leaves. Perhaps this is how your mind feels tonight. A few leaves on the surface, a twig of worry, a brown thought from the day, a yellow memory from long ago, a small piece of something broken, floating where you hoped to see a clear sky. You may have been lowering the bucket again and again, trying to scoop every thought away before sleep. But each attempt stirs the water. Each effort to make the mind perfectly clear may create more movement. This is why peace sometimes comes not when the surface is empty, but when we stop disturbing the depth. You do not need a perfectly clear mind to rest. The water below the leaves is still water. The awareness beneath the thoughts is still here. The body beneath the tension is still here. The quiet beneath the problem has not been destroyed by the problem. It is simply covered for a little while by what the wind has dropped. Let this be simple. If a thought floats, let it float. If a memory drifts, let it drift. If the surface trembles, let it tremble without climbing down into the well with a lantern and a rope. Feel the depth of the body now. Not only the face, not only the busy forehead, not only the thoughts moving at the surface. Feel the deeper weight of yourself resting in the bed. The back, the hips, the legs, the heels, the quiet places that have been here all along, even while the mind was moving. The breath lowers a bucket into that depth. Inhale, cool water. Exhale, the rope softening. Again. Inhale, drawing from below the leaves. Again, exhale, not needing the surface to be perfect. There is a sky somewhere above you, even if you cannot see it clearly tonight. There is a stillness somewhere within you, even if the top of the mind is covered with pieces of the day. Nothing in you has to be cleared by force. Kiku returned to the well the next morning. During the night, some leaves had sunk. Some had gathered near the wall. One had vanished into the darkness below. The water reflected the pale dawn with a softness that did not belong to effort. She smiled and lifted the cover. Then she did what needed doing. She removed a twig. She rinsed the bucket. She swept the stones. The work was easy because she had not spent the night fighting it. And perhaps morning will be like that for you. Some thoughts will have sunk by themselves. Some worries will have moved to the edge. Some things will still need your hands, but your hands may be gentler after rest. For now, let the cover settle over the well. Let the night guard the water. Let the surface be imperfect. Let the depth remain. You are not the leaves. You are not the twig. You are not even the trembling reflection. You are the quiet capacity beneath them, dark and patient, still able to hold the sky when the wind has finished passing. And when the wind had passed over the old well, it moved farther down the hillside, through bamboo, across roofs, and into a small courtyard behind a temple kitchen. There, under the shelter of a low eave, stood a row of sandals. They belonged to the monks, the cook, 2 visiting pilgrims, and 1 boy who had been sent by his family to spend the winter at the temple. His name was Taro, and he had not yet learned how to live with things being out of place. Each night, before sleeping, Taro arranged his sandals beside the door. He placed the left one on the left, the right one on the right, toes pointing outward, heels touching the wooden step. Then he arranged the sandals of the others too. If one pair leaned sideways, he straightened it. If mud clung to a sole, he scraped it away. If the pilgrims left their sandals carelessly, he frowned, though he said nothing. The temple cook noticed this. Her name was Mai, and she was round-faced, strong-handed, and usually smelled faintly of rice steam and ginger. She'd worked in the kitchen since she was young. She knew that people showed their minds in how they held chopsticks, washed bowls, opened doors, and left sandals. One snowy evening, after the meal, Taro came to the kitchen looking upset. "The pilgrims put their sandals in the wrong place again," he said. Mai was wiping a wooden ladle. "Did the sandals suffer?" Taro did not smile. "Someone may trip." "Then move them enough so no one trips." "I did, but they will do it again tomorrow." Mai hung the ladle on its peg. "Most likely." Taro looked pained. "Then what is the use?" Mai took a small lantern and led him to the back door. Snow was falling lightly in the courtyard. The sandals stood under the eave in a crooked row. Some were neat, some were turned at an angle. One pilgrim's sandal had rolled partly onto its side. Taro stepped forward quickly, but Mai held out one hand. "Wait," she said. They stood together, looking at the sandals. Snow fell beyond the roofline. A few flakes blew in and melted on the toes of the nearest pair. The kitchen behind them was warm. Someone inside was stacking bowls. Far away, the evening bell had already faded. Mai said, "When people come in from the cold, they do not always leave their sandals beautifully."
"They should," Taro said.
"Yes," said Mai. "And sometimes they do not." This answer bothered him because it left the world standing exactly as it was. Mai crouched and turned the fallen sandal upright. She did not arrange the whole row. She did not make every pair perfect. She only moved the one that might be stepped on in darkness. Then she stood. "That is all?" Taro asked. "That is enough. But the row looks messy." Mai looked at him with kindness. "A messy row of sandals may mean people found shelter." Taro looked again. He saw what he had not seen before. The pilgrim sandals were muddy because they had walked a long road. The cook's sandals were wet because she had gone out to bring in firewood. One monk's sandals were old and bent because his feet had worn them for many years. His own sandals were neat because he was afraid that if the outside was not orderly, the inside would feel unsafe. The crooked row was not only disorder, it was evidence of arrival. May lifted the lantern. "Tonight, make the doorway safe. Do not make the whole world obedient." Taro breathed out. The air came from him in a little cloud. He moved one more pair away from the step, then stopped. The rest he left as they were. That night, lying on his mat, he thought about the sandals under the eave. His mind wanted to return and straighten them all. It showed him the crooked row again and again. But he also remembered Mai's words. Shelter. Arrival. Enough. Outside, snow continued to fall, quietly covering the courtyard stones. Perhaps there is a row of sandals in your mind tonight. Small things out of order. A room not fully cleaned. A plan not properly arranged. A person who did not behave as you hoped. A detail left crooked at the edge of the day. The fixing mind believes that peace will come only when every sandal is straight, every message answered, every feeling explained, every future made safe. But life is often a doorway after a long road. People arrive muddy. Thoughts arrive sideways. Emotions come in from the weather and do not always line up neatly under the eave. Tonight, you may make the doorway safe without making the whole world obedient. This is a gentle middle way. Not neglect, not control. A small, wise action. Then rest. Move what truly blocks the path. Write down what must not be forgotten. Place one concern where morning can find it. Then stop arranging the same row again and again inside your head. Let your body feel this difference. Let the hands stop straightening invisible sandals. Let the wrists soften. Let the arms grow heavy. Let the shoulders release the duty of managing every doorway. Let the chest know that shelter does not require perfection. The room around you may not be perfect. Your life may not be in a perfect row. Your thoughts may not be facing the same direction. Still, you have arrived here. You are under the eve of night. Snow can fall without your instruction. The kitchen can grow quiet. The sandals can wait by the door, some straight, some crooked, all belonging to beings who have walked through weather. Taro slept, not because he had learned to love disorder, but because he had begun to understand proportion. One fallen sandal needed moving. The whole row did not need his fear. One real task could be done. The rest was only the mind asking the world to bow before bedtime. In the morning, the pilgrims left before dawn. Their sandals made soft marks in the snow. By noon, those marks had melted. Taro stood under the eave and saw that all his worry about the row had lasted longer than the row itself. He laughed quietly. Then he went to the kitchen, where Mai was washing rice, and asked if he could help. She handed him a bowl. The bowl was not perfectly round. The water inside it trembled as he carried it. But he carried it carefully enough. And that was the beginning of a different kind of peace. A peace not made from perfect rows, but from knowing what truly needed the hand, and what only needed space. In the hills above the temple kitchen, there was a narrow path used by woodcutters and wandering monks. It crossed a ridge of black pine, then descended toward a small hut where an old candle maker lived. His name was Iwan. He made candles for the temple, for village homes, for shrines by the road, and for people who wanted a little light beside a sickbed or a winter meal. Iwan's hut smelled of beeswax, smoke, and dried grass. Bundles of cotton wick hung from the ceiling. Clay molds stood along the wall. On cold mornings, he warmed wax over a low fire and dipped the wicks again and again, each layer so thin that an impatient person would think nothing was happening. But Iwan was not impatient. He had learned that light is built slowly. One winter afternoon, a young monk came to buy candles for the meditation hall. Snow had begun to fall, and the monk seemed troubled. He watched Iwan lift one wick from the warm wax, let it cool, dip it again, and hang it beside the others. After a while, the monk said, "How many times must you dip it?" "Enough times," Iwan answered. "How do you know when it is enough?" Iwan held up a half-formed candle. It was thin, uneven, and soft. "If I stop here, it burns too quickly. If I keep going after it is ready, I waste wax and make it heavy." The monk nodded, but his eyes were elsewhere. Iwan noticed. "You did not come only for candles." The young monk lowered his gaze. "I was given a task by the abbot. I must copy a set of old verses before spring. I copied for many hours today, but when I reviewed the pages, I found mistakes. Ink too dark in one place, a line not straight, a character missing. I want to go back tonight and fix them all." "Can you see well at night?" Iwan asked. "No." "Are your hands steady?" The monk looked at his fingers. They were red from cold and cramped from writing. "Not very." "Then why return tonight?" The monk's face tightened. "Because the mistakes are there." Iwan placed another wick into the wax and lifted it slowly. "Mistakes are often there." The monk almost smiled, but worry kept his mouth still. Iwan carried the half-formed candle to the window. Outside, snow gathered on pine branches. The world was becoming white without asking anyone to complete it. He said, "A candle must rest between dippings. If I keep forcing it into the wax while it is still warm, the layers slide. The shape bends. What I call effort becomes damage." The monk listened. Iwan touched the soft candle. A small mark appeared where his finger had pressed. "See, it needs cooling, not more work." The young monk stood very still. He had believed rest was a reward after correction. But perhaps rest was part of the correction. Perhaps his tired hand, like soft wax, could not become clearer by being pushed again and again into the same task. Iwan wrapped the finished candles in cloth and gave them to him.
Then he added the uneven, half-formed candle.
"Take this one too," he said.
"It is not finished."
"No," said Iwan.
"Let it remind you." The monk walked back through the snow with the bundle held carefully inside his robe. When he reached the temple, the meditation hall was already dim. He placed the finished candles near the altar. Then he carried the unfinished one to his sleeping room and set it beside his brush. For a long time, he looked at the pages he wanted to repair. The mistakes seemed to glow in his mind. But then he looked at the soft candle, bent slightly to one side, still becoming itself. He closed the ink box. In the morning, after sleep, he found that some mistakes were easy to mend. One missing character could be added. One dark stroke did not matter. One crooked line could remain because the verse was still readable. His hand was steadier. His eyes were kinder. The work had not suffered because he rested. It had been protected. Perhaps tonight, you are like that candle. You may feel unfinished. Too soft in one place. Too uneven in another. Not yet wise enough, calm enough, healed enough, disciplined enough, certain enough. The mind says, go back into the heat, try again, correct yourself now, improve yourself before sleep. But what if the next layer cannot be added tonight? What if more pressure would only bend the shape? There is a kind of effort that helps, and there is a kind of effort that only continues because we are afraid to stop. Zen is not laziness. It is clear seeing. It asks, what is truly needed now? Sometimes the answer is a brush. Sometimes it is an apology. Sometimes it is a broom. And sometimes it is cooling in the dark. Let the body cool now. Let the forehead become smooth wax. Let the eyes stop working behind the eyelids. Let the tongue rest. Let the shoulders soften as if they no longer have to hold their shape for anyone. Let the chest be warm but not strained. Let the belly loosen. Let the legs become quiet. You are not made better by being forced all night. You are not falling behind because you rest. You are not unfinished in a shameful way. You are unfinished in the way every candle is unfinished while it is being made. In the way every winter branch is unfinished before spring. In the way every breath is unfinished until the next one comes. The young monk kept the uneven candle for many years. He never lit it. It remained on a small shelf by his writing table, a little bent, a little rough, carrying the memory of snow and the old candlemaker's hands. Whenever he was tempted to correct his work past the point of care, he touched the candle and remembered that not all improvement happens through more effort. Some things become steady by cooling. Some things become clear by waiting. Some things are protected by the mercy of stopping. Tonight, may you know that mercy. May the unfinished places in you rest without being rushed. May the soft wax of the heart be left in peace until morning light returns. And when morning light returned to the candlemaker's hill, it did not rush. It entered the snow slowly, first as gray, then silver, then a pale gold along the edges of the pines. It touched the hut roof, the path, the woodpile, the clay molds by the wall. It touched the unfinished candles too, and did not ask them why they were not ready. Below the hill, near the western road, there was a small inn where travelers stayed when the mountain pass was closed. The innkeeper was a man named Oren. He had a broad face, tired eyes, and a habit of listening more than he spoke. He kept the rooms clean, the rice warm, and the lamps filled with oil. His wife had died many years earlier, and since then he had learned to make welcome out of small gestures. Dry socks by the fire, extra broth for the old, a quiet corner for anyone who did not want to talk. One evening, a scholar arrived carrying a bundle of scrolls under his robe. He was angry before he entered. His sandals struck the threshold sharply. Snow fell from his sleeves onto the floor. He looked at the common room, the hearth, the sleeping mats rolled against the wall, and said, "There must be a private room." Oren bowed. "There is one small room at the back. It must be quiet." "It is usually quiet." "Usually" is not enough. Oren looked at him with gentle patience. "Tonight, it will be as quiet as the inn can make it." The scholar did not seem satisfied, but he took the room. After supper, he sat by a lamp and unrolled his scrolls. He had been preparing for an important examination in the capital. Snow had delayed him. The closed mountain pass had trapped him at the inn, and he believed every lost hour might ruin his future. For a while, the inn was peaceful. Then a baby began to cry in the next room. The scholar stiffened. The baby cried, stopped, cried again, then wailed with the full strength of a small body that knew only discomfort and sound. The scholar pressed his palms to his ears. He tried to read. The same line blurred again and again. At last, he stood and went to the common room. Oren was adding wood to the fire. "I cannot study," the scholar said. Oren nodded. "The child is ill from the cold road." "That does not help me." "No," said Oren. "It only explains the sound." The scholar became red in the face. "I must pass this examination. I must repair this delay. I must make up the time I have lost." The baby cried again behind the wall. The scholar turned toward the sound as if it were an enemy. Oren set down the firewood. "Come," he said. He led the scholar outside under the eave. Snow was still falling. The courtyard was white, except for footprints leading to the stable and back. From inside the inn came the baby's cry, thinner now through the wooden walls. Also from inside came other sounds, a pot lid settling, someone coughing, a traveler laughing softly in sleep, the fire shifting in the hearth. Oren said, "Which sound is the inn?" The scholar frowned. "What do you mean? Is the inn the baby crying, the fire burning, the pot settling, your own anger, my voice, the snow on the roof?" The scholar did not answer. Oren continued, "You have taken one sound and made it the whole night." The scholar looked away. This angered him because it was true. The baby's cry was real. His frustration was real. His fear about the examination was real. But he had gathered the entire world into that one sound and called it his suffering. Oren pointed toward the courtyard. "Look." A small pine stood near the gate, its branches holding snow. Each time the wind moved, a little snow fell. Yet the tree did not shake itself bare. It held what it held, dropped what it dropped, and remained a tree. "The night contains more than what disturbs you," Oren said. The scholar stood under the eave until his breathing slowed. When he returned to his room, the baby was still crying from time to time. The sound did not become pleasant. He did not pretend to love it, but he began to notice the spaces around it. Fire, wind, his own breath, the scratch of his brush, silence between cries, snow touching the roof. He studied less than he had planned, but he studied more clearly. Near midnight, the baby quieted. The scholar looked down at his scroll and saw that the line he had been fighting all evening was simple. He had been unable to understand it because he had been at war with the night. Perhaps tonight, one sound has become your whole inn. One worry, one discomfort, one unfinished task, one person's words, one ache in the body, one fear about tomorrow. It may be real. We do not need to deny it, but it may not be the whole night. The fixing mind gathers everything around the loudest disturbance. It says, until this is gone, there can be no peace. Until this is solved, there can be no rest. Until this sound stops, the whole inn is ruined. But the night is wider. There is the worry, yes. And there is the breath. There is the ache, yes. And there is the blanket. There is the unknown, yes. And there is the steady dark around the window. There is the memory, the regret, the plan, the question. And there is also the quiet space that holds them without becoming only them. Let your awareness widen gently, not to push the sound away, not to fix it, only to notice that it is not alone. Feel the bed beneath you. Feel the air near the face. Feel the places where the body is not tense. Feel the warmth that still exists somewhere. Feel the pause after the exhale. Feel the silence behind the thought. The cry is not the whole inn. The worry is not the whole self. The unfinished thing is not the whole life. Oren slept that night after every guest had settled. The scholar slept too, with one scroll open beside his mat and ink drying in the brush. In the morning, the mountain pass was still closed, but the snow had stopped. The baby's mother came to the common room carrying her child, now sleeping against her shoulder. The scholar looked at them and bowed awkwardly. The mother bowed back, too tired to wonder why. Later, when the pass opened, the scholar continued toward the capital. He still cared about the examination. He still studied. But sometimes, when one fear became too loud, he remembered the inn under snow and asked himself, what else is here? And that question did not solve everything. It simply opened a window. Tonight, may the window open inside you, too. May the one loud thought become only one sound among many. May the night become wide again. May the inn of the body hold its fire, its snow, its silence, and its sleep. After the scholar left the inn and the mountain pass opened, the road wound through a forest of bare branches. Snow melted from higher limbs and fell in slow drops. Here and there, dark stones showed through the white. A little way beyond the forest stood a watch hut used by road keepers during winter. It was small. One room, a stove, a bench, a tool rack, and a window facing the bend where carts slid on thick ice. The road keeper was named Yasu. He had spent many winters watching travelers pass, clearing branches, marking danger with red cloth,
and helping oxen find footing when the road became glassy. Yasu was a careful man. He believed in preparation. Before snowstorms, he stacked firewood. Before spring floods, he checked the ditch. Before night, he counted his tools and hung them in the same order: shovel, hook, mallet, rope, broom. One year, near the end of winter, a storm came earlier than expected. It did not bring deep snow, but it brought ice. Rain fell in the afternoon, then froze as evening arrived. By twilight, the road shone like dark water. Yasu lit his lantern and went out to spread sand on the bend. He worked quickly, because a family from the upper village was expected to travel that road before night. He spread one sack of sand, then another. He marked the edge with branches. He tested the ground with his boot. Then, as he returned to the hut, he slipped. He did not fall far, but he landed hard on one knee. Pain flashed through him. He sat on the frozen road, angry before he was afraid. Angry at the ice, angry at his old leg, angry that, after all his care, he had become the one who needed help. The lantern had rolled a little away from him, still burning. Yasu tried to stand. His knee would not hold. A young woman from the upper village arrived then, leading a small horse and carrying a sleeping bundle on her back. When she saw him on the road, she tied the horse to a branch and came quickly.
"Roadkeeper," she said, "are you hurt?"
"I am fine," Yasu answered too sharply. She looked at his leg.
"You are not standing."
"I will stand."
"Perhaps,"
she said, "but not before I help you." Yasu wanted to refuse. His whole life had been built around being the person who prepared the road for others. To be found sitting on the very ice he had tried to make safe felt like a private failure made visible. But the young woman did not look at him with pity. She looked at him the way one traveler looks at another who has met a difficult patch of road. Together, slowly, they reached the hut. She helped him sit on the bench and wrapped his knee with cloth from her bundle. Then she put more wood in the stove. Yasu watched her move around his small room. She did not know where every tool belonged. She set the mallet on the wrong shelf. She placed the broom against the wall instead of on its peg. She poured water into the kettle and spilled a little near the stove. His mind began to correct each thing. The mallet belongs higher. The broom will warp there. The water should be wiped before it freezes near the door. But his knee throbbed, and the young woman was kind, and the sleeping child on her back made a soft sound against her shoulder. So Yasu said nothing. After the tea boiled, she handed him a cup. "You have helped many people on this road," she said. "Tonight, the road has allowed someone to help you." He looked into the cup. Steam rose and vanished. "I should have been more careful," he murmured. "You were careful," she said. "Ice is still ice." The words entered him more deeply than he expected. Ice is still ice. Care does not remove every slip. Preparation does not make a person untouchable. Good intention does not turn the road into something other than road. For years, Yasu had believed that if something went wrong, he must have failed to prepare enough. If a branch fell, he should have seen it. If a cart slid, he should have spread more sand. If a traveler was delayed, he should have known the weather more perfectly. Responsibility had become so large inside him that there was no room left for simple truth. Sometimes ice is still ice. That night, the young woman and her child slept by the stove because the road was no longer safe. Yasu slept on the bench with his knee wrapped and his tools out of order. Several times he woke and saw the broom leaning in the wrong place. Each time, he breathed and let it remain. By morning, the pain had lessened. The young woman swept the doorway before leaving. Not the way he would have done it, but well enough. She bowed, untied her horse, and continued down the road after the sun softened the ice. Yasu stood with a stick beside the door. He looked at the bend, the sand, the shine, the mark where he had slipped. He did not love the mark, but he no longer hated it. Perhaps tonight there is a place where you slipped, even after trying to be careful. You prepared. You cared. You thought ahead. You tried to be patient, wise, steady, kind, organized, strong. And still something went wrong. A mood broke through. A plan failed. A body hurt. A person misunderstood. A road you had sanded became ice beneath your feet. The fixing mind says, if I had done everything perfectly, this would not have happened. But life is not a road we can make completely safe by worry. Ice is still ice. Weather is still weather. Other people are still other people. The body is still the body. The future is still partly hidden, no matter how many lanterns we carry. This does not mean your care was useless. Yasu's sand still helped the bend. His branches still marked the edge. His preparation still mattered. But care is not control. Care is an offering. Control is the belief that nothing difficult should happen if we are good enough. Tonight, you may release that belief. Feel the places in your body that have been trying to prove you did enough. The tightness in the brow, the guarded chest, the stomach holding itself like a fist, the legs still ready to brace against a fall that has already happened. Let the body come inside the hut. Let the stove be warm. Let the tools be out of order. Let someone, somewhere, offer help without turning it into shame. The breath does not ask whether you slipped today. It comes anyway. It enters the room of the body like a young traveler adding wood to the fire. It leaves like steam fading above a cup. You are allowed to be careful and still human. You are allowed to prepare and still be surprised. You are allowed to rest even if the road was icy, even if the broom is leaning in the wrong place, even if tomorrow will require slow steps. Yasu spent several days healing. During that time, other villagers checked the road for him. None did the work exactly his way, yet the road remained passable. The world he had been trying to hold alone showed him that it had other hands. And when he finally walked the bend again, he spread sand more slowly, not with less care, but with less fear. This was how the roadkeeper changed, and the road itself did not notice. It still froze when cold came. It still softened when sun touched it. Carts still passed. Travelers still slipped from time to time. Branches still fell. Yet something in Yasu had loosened around the old belief that every difficult thing was a verdict on his worth. In early spring, when the snow had pulled back from the lower fields, a traveling nun came to the watch hut carrying a bundle of cloth and a walking staff polished by many roads. She was not part of any temple nearby. She moved quietly, with the steady step of someone who did not need every village to remember her name. Yasu was sitting outside, rubbing oil into a leather strap for his tool basket. His knee still ached when rain was near, but he could walk again. The nun bowed. "May I rest by your stove for a little while?" "There is little fire left," Yasu said. "A little is enough." He led her inside. The hut was simple and clean. The tools were mostly in order, though the broom now leaned in a corner rather than hanging from its old peg. Yasu had not yet decided whether this was neglect or freedom.
The nun sat near the stove and warmed her hands. After a while, she noticed a small wooden shelf above the bench. On it sat a cracked lantern. Its glass had broken along one side, and a line of soot marked the frame. It could no longer be carried in wind, but Yasu had not thrown it away.
That lantern has seen weather, she said.
Yasu followed her gaze.
It failed me during a storm.
Did the flame go out?
Yes.
Did you? He looked at her. The question was plain, but it opened a door. He remembered that night. Rain blowing sideways, mud sliding near the ditch. The lantern flame dying when he needed it most. He had cursed it, cursed himself for not checking the glass, cursed the dark for being dark. Yet he had found the road by touch, tree by tree, stone by stone. He had reached the hut. He had lived. The flame went out, he said slowly. I did not. The nun nodded, as if he had answered something for himself rather than for her. Yasu poured tea into a chipped cup. I kept it to remind me to buy better glass. That is one reminder, she said. There may be another. He waited. A light can fail, and still the one who walked by it can learn the dark. Yasu looked toward the window. Outside, the road was pale with thawing snow. Water dripped from the roof in even intervals. He had spent many years trying to make sure every lantern stayed lit. This was good, as far as it went. A working lantern is useful. Clear glass matters. Oil matters. A careful hand matters. But the old fear inside him had gone further. It had said, if the light fails, you are lost. If the plan fails, you are nothing. If one support breaks, there is no ground. The nun drank her tea. Then she reached into her cloth bundle and took out a needle case. One side was torn. She held it up with a small smile. Do you have thread? Yasu did. Together, without much speech, they mended the needle case. His stitches were clumsy. Hers were neat. The repair was not beautiful, but it held. When she left, she bowed to the cracked lantern on the shelf, as if it were a teacher. Yasu found this strange. Then, later, he understood. Perhaps tonight there is a lantern in you that went out. A plan you trusted. A confidence that used to guide you. A person whose presence was once your light. A habit. A belief. A certainty. A clear direction. And when it failed, the mind concluded, I cannot continue until the light is fixed. I cannot rest until I know the way again. But sometimes the flame goes out, and still you are here. Still breathing, still held by the bed, still able to feel the next small stone underfoot, even if the whole road is not visible. This does not mean darkness is easy. It does not mean you must praise what frightened you. It only means that the absence of a light is not the absence of your life. The mind may say, fix the lantern now, fix the whole path, bring back the old certainty before sleep. But the body, wiser than the mind, may know how to rest even when the future is dim.
feel the room around you. You do not need to see every corner. You do not need to know how everything will unfold. Let the eyelids remain soft. Let the eyes stop searching behind them. Let the forehead become smooth. Let the shoulders sink as if the walking staff has been set by the door. Let the hands rest without reaching for glass, oil, flame, or proof. The breath is enough light for this moment. Not a lantern for the whole road, only enough to be here. Inhale, and one small stone appears beneath the foot. Exhale, and you do not need the next one yet. Inhale, and the body is known. Exhale, and the darkness is allowed to be dark. The nun continued beyond the watch hut and reached the lower village by dusk. Someone there gave her rice. Someone else asked for a blessing for a sick mother. She offered no grand words. She only sat beside the old woman's bed and held her hand while the evening changed color outside the window. Meanwhile, Yasu remained in the hut. When night came, he lit a newer lantern, one with clear glass. Then he looked at the cracked one on the shelf. For the first time, he did not see only failure. He saw a night he had survived. He saw hands learning the road. He saw darkness that had not destroyed him. He let both lanterns remain. The whole one for seeing, the broken one for remembering. And somewhere inside that remembering, there was a soft rest. The kind that comes when a person no longer demands that every light remain lit forever. Tonight, your old light may be dim. Let it be dim. Let the breath be the small light that is here now. Let the next step wait until there is a step to take. For a while, the road itself seemed to rest. Snowmelt moved in thin lines beside the stones. The pines shook off their last white burdens. Small green shoots appeared near the ditch where Yasu had once placed red cloth in winter. Below the roadkeeper's hut, the river widened into a slow bend, and beside that bend stood an old willow tree. Its branches hung low over the water, touching the surface when the wind was still. Children liked to play there in summer. They tied paper boats from scraps and watched them drift under the willow shade. An old boat builder named Sadao lived near that bend. He had once made fishing boats, ferry boats, and narrow river skiffs. Now his hands shook too much for large work, so he repaired oars, patched small leaks, and carved little wooden boats for children. Sadao had a grandson named Eri, who loved to build things quickly. One afternoon, Eri came running to the workshop with a toy boat he had made from pine bark, 2 twigs, and a square of cloth for a sail.
"Grandfather," he said, "look, it is ready."
Sadao held the boat gently. The sail leaned. The twigs were uneven. One side of the bark was heavier than the other. "It is a good beginning," he said. Eri frowned. "It is ready. Let us test it." They walked to the willow bend. Eri placed the boat on the water and pushed it with one finger. For a moment, it moved beautifully. Then it turned sideways, took in water, and rolled over. Eri gasped, as if the river had insulted him. He grabbed the boat, shook it hard, and tried to straighten the sail. "It only needs fixing." Sadao sat on a stone. "Perhaps." Eri pushed the sail upright. He pressed the bark with both thumbs. He bent one twig too far and it snapped. His face crumpled. "Now it is ruined." Sadao picked up the broken twig. "It is changed,"
it means ruined.
Not always.
Eri looked angry and ashamed.
I wanted it to sail today.
Sadao nodded. Wanting it today is not wrong. Then why did it sink? Because the river gave you information. This was not the answer Eri wanted. He wanted the river to apologize. He wanted his first boat to become the boat he had imagined. He wanted his grandfather to repair it at once and prove that disappointment could be ended quickly. Instead, Sadao placed the wet bark on his knee and studied it. The heavy side pulled it down, he said. The sail caught too much wind, and this twig was weak before it broke. Eri crossed his arms. So I failed. You learned 3 things. They feel the same. Sadao smiled. Only at first. They carried the small broken boat back to the workshop. Eri wanted to throw it away, but Sadao placed it on a shelf. Then he gave the boy another piece of bark. Tomorrow, he said, we will build one that listens better to water. Tomorrow? Eri asked. Why not now? Sadao held up his own hands. The fingers were bent and tired. Because today we are both too full of the first boat. Eri did not understand, but he stayed. They swept wood shavings from the floor. They hung the small knife back on its hook. They closed the workshop door. The broken boat remained on the shelf, drying slowly in the evening air. That night, Eri lay awake longer than usual. He kept seeing the boat roll over. He kept hearing the twig snap. His mind tried to rebuild it in the dark, again and again, each version sailing perfectly beneath the willow. But his body was tired. His eyes grew heavy. The river in his imagination became softer. At last, he slept. The next morning, Sadao showed him the dried boat. The broken place was clearer now. The heavy side was easy to see. Eri touched it with one finger. It was never balanced, he said. No, said Sadao. I could not see that yesterday. No, said Sadao. Yesterday you were still trying to save it. Together they built another boat. This one was smaller. The sail was lower. The sides were shaved more evenly. When Eri placed it on the river, it wobbled, turned, then found its line and drifted under the willow branches. Eri did not shout. He watched quietly, almost respectfully, as if the river had become a teacher instead of an enemy. Perhaps tonight there is a first boat inside you. Something you tried to make work. A plan, a promise, a habit, a beginning, a conversation, a new version of yourself. You set it on the water with hope, and it turned over sooner than you expected. The fixing mind rushes to the bank. It shakes the wet bark. It bends the twig until it breaks. It says, now, now, now. Fix it before the feeling of failure has time to arrive. But sometimes, the first sinking is not a verdict. It is information. Not all information can be used immediately. When the heart is wet with disappointment, even a simple lesson can feel like an accusation. This is why the old boat builder waited. He did not abandon the boat. He did not pretend it had sailed well. He simply let the child sleep before trying again. Tonight, perhaps you do not need another attempt. Perhaps you need drying time. Let the mind stop bending the broken twig. Let the hands rest. Let the forehead loosen from planning the perfect second boat. Let the chest soften around the small sting of disappointment.
let the belly release the need to turn learning into instant success. The breath is a quiet workshop after sunset. Tools are placed down. Wood shavings settle. The river continues outside without blame. You may learn tomorrow. You may adjust tomorrow. You may build something that listens better to water tomorrow. For now, the first boat can stay on the shelf. The old boat builder knew that rushed repairs often carry the panic of the sinking into the next design. Rest lets the lesson separate from shame. Sleep lets the river speak more clearly. Morning lets the hand return without trembling. And in your own life, this may also be true. The thing that did not work today may become useful wisdom later. The mistake that feels heavy now may show you where balance is needed. The broken twig may teach you which part was never strong enough to hold so much wind. You do not have to fix the boat in the dark. Let it dry. Let the river move. Let sleep be the patient shelf where disappointment loses its sharpness and becomes simply something learned. In the quiet after Sadao and Eri left the workshop, the river kept its own slow company. It moved beneath the willow, around stones, past reeds, and into the wider valley where the fields opened toward a small monastery known for its winter lamps. This monastery was not famous. Pilgrims did not travel far to see it. Its main hall was modest, its roof patched in many places, its bell not especially deep. But in the cold months, when snow closed the upper trails, the monks hung lamps along the outer walkway so lost travelers could find the gate. A young monk named Kaito was given the duty of lighting them. Each evening, he filled the little bowls with oil, trimmed the wicks, and moved from lamp to lamp with the taper. He liked this work. It gave his hands a clear purpose. One flame became another. Darkness stepped back from the walkway. The gate appeared. The stones appeared. The old wooden rails shone faintly in the cold air. But Kaito had one worry. The last lamp near the far corner often went out. No one knew why. Perhaps the wind turned there. Perhaps the wick sat badly. Perhaps the bowl was cracked too finely to see. Every evening, Kaito lit it. Every night, when he checked before sleep, that lamp was dark. At first, he simply relit it. Then he trimmed the wick more carefully. Then he changed the oil. Then he moved the lamp a little closer to the wall. Still, it went out. Soon, the small lamp became large in his mind. During meals, he thought of it. During chanting, he wondered whether the corner was already dark. While washing his bowl, he imagined travelers stumbling because of that one missing light. The other lamps continued to burn, but he no longer saw them clearly. He saw only the one that failed. One night, snow began falling early. Kaito lit all the lamps and stood by the troublesome corner, watching. The little flame trembled, leaned, recovered, leaned again. He cupped both hands around it. Snow collected on his sleeves. His feet grew cold. An older monk named Seon came along the walkway carrying a broom. "Why are you standing in the snow?" Seon asked. "This lamp keeps going out." "Yes," said Seon. "I have tried everything." "Everything?" Kaito looked tired. "Everything I can think of." Seon stood beside him. Together, they watched the flame struggle. After a while, Seon pointed down the walkway. "How many lamps are burning?" Kaito did not look.
All the others.
Then the path is not dark. But this corner is. Yes, this corner is dimmer. Kaito felt frustration rise.
Should I leave it that way?
For tonight, Seon said. Perhaps you should leave yourself that way. Kaito turned toward him. The old monk brushed snow from the rail. A person can become so busy guarding one weak flame that he forgets the 19 flames still burning. Then the whole mind becomes cold. The troublesome lamp flickered once and went out. Kaito made a small sound of defeat. Seon did not relight it. He only looked down the walkway. The other lamps glowed softly, one after another, making a golden path through the blue snow. The corner was not bright, but it was not dangerous. The gate could still be seen. The stones were still visible enough.
Tomorrow, Seon said, we can look at the bowl in daylight.
Kaito wanted to argue, but his hands were numb. His robe was wet. His whole body had become a servant to one small failure. So he followed Seon inside. In the warmth of the kitchen, he held his hands near the stove. At first, he felt ashamed. The lamp was out there, dark, while he sat inside. But the shame slowly changed into weariness, and the weariness into relief. He had not abandoned the monastery. He had not abandoned travelers. He had only stopped standing in snow over what could not be solved well in the dark. In the morning, Kaito and Seon examined the lamp bowl. There was indeed a hairline crack near the base. Oil had been leaking little by little, too slowly to notice at night. They replaced it with another bowl, and the next evening the lamp burned steadily. Kaito was happy, but also quiet. He understood that the repair had needed daylight, not more freezing devotion. Perhaps tonight there is one lamp in you that keeps going out. One part of the day you cannot make shine. One worry that returns. One habit that failed again. One relationship corner that feels dim. One place in the mind where all your effort still has not produced a steady flame. And because that one lamp is dark, the mind says, nothing is safe. Nothing is working. I cannot rest. But look gently down the walkway, not as a forced gratitude, not as a command to be positive, only as a wider seeing. There may be other lamps still burning. A bed beneath you, air entering the lungs. One person who cares. One task completed. One cup washed. One kindness given. One part of the body that is not in pain. One small truth you did learn today. One breath arriving now, quietly bright. The dark corner matters. But it is not the whole path. Tonight, you do not have to stand in the snow guarding one weak flame with your bare hands. You may come inside. You may warm the fingers. You may wait for daylight to show what night cannot reveal. Let the body come in from the walkway. Let the hands grow warm. Let the arms rest beside you. Let the shoulders release their cold watchfulness. Let the chest stop measuring the whole life by the lamp that would not stay lit. Let the belly soften under the blanket. The breath is one lamp. Small, yes. But here, inhale, a little light. Exhale, enough path. Again, inhale, not fixing the corner. Again,
Exhale, returning to warmth. The monastery did not disappear because one lamp went out. The gate did not vanish. The snow did not become an enemy. And the monk, when he stopped freezing beside the problem, became able to repair it with a clear hand in the morning. So let the dim corner be dim for now. Let the other lamps burn. Let the night be traveled by enough light, not perfect light. And if you are already drifting, you do not need to follow the rest of the path with effort. The lamps know how to stand in a row. The snow knows how to fall softly. The morning knows how to find the cracked bowl. You may sleep before every flame is steady. And if sleep has already begun to gather around the edges of the mind, let it gather. There is no need to sit up inside yourself and listen too carefully. The story can become softer now. The images can become fewer. The path can narrow to one quiet breath, then another. At the far edge of the Winterlamp Monastery, behind the kitchen and beyond the storehouse, there was a small courtyard almost no traveler saw. In the courtyard stood a stone basin, a bamboo ladle, and an old camellia tree. In late winter, when most branches were still bare, the camellia opened dark red flowers, each one bright against the cold. The oldest monk in the monastery, Seon, often came there before dawn. He did not come to teach. He came to wash his face. Each morning, he lifted the bamboo ladle, poured cold water into his hands, and touched his eyes, cheeks, neck, and the back of his head. Then he stood very still until the water stopped dripping from his chin. He liked that moment before the day had a name. One morning, Kaito came to the courtyard after a night of troubled dreams. He had slept, but not deeply. In his dream, every lamp in the monastery had gone out, and he had run from one to another, trying to light them with a taper that kept breaking. When he woke, his chest was tight. Seon was already beside the basin. Kaito bowed. "I thought I had understood about the lamp," he said, "but my mind kept fixing it all night." Seon poured water over his hands. Dreams sometimes continue work we have already set down. Then how do I stop them? The old monk looked at the camellia tree. One flower had fallen during the night. It lay on the stone beside the basin, whole and red, as if it was still blooming sideways. Seon picked it up and placed it on the surface of the water. The flower floated. "Watch," he said. Kaito watched. Nothing happened for a while. The flower turned slightly when the morning air moved. A drop of water touched one petal. The reflection of the gray sky trembled around it. Kaito waited for a lesson, but Seon gave none. At last, the old monk said, "The flower does not need to climb back to the branch." Kaito breathed out. It was such a simple thing, almost too simple. The fallen flower was not ashamed. The branch was not calling it back. The basin was not asking it to become useful. Morning did not pause until the flower understood its condition. It floated because floating was what remained. Kaito looked at the water and saw, for a moment, how much of his suffering came from trying to return everything to the branch. The lamp that had gone out, the mistake already made, the feeling already felt, the day already lived. The self he had been before worry entered, the calm he believed he should never lose. All night he had been asking fallen things to climb. Seon touched the surface of the basin with one finger. Small rings moved outward around the flower. Some things are repaired,
he said softly. Some things are released. Some things are only allowed to float until they sink. The rings widened, touched the stone edge, and disappeared. Kaito did not feel a great awakening. He only felt tired in a quieter way. The kind of tiredness that no longer argues with the pillow. The kind that can finally become sleep. That evening, he lit the lamps again. The replaced corner lamp burned well. He noticed it, smiled, and then did not think of it for long. There were bowls to wash, wood to carry, a robe to fold. When night came, he passed the small courtyard and saw the camellia flower still resting in the basin, darker now, beginning to soften at the edges. He did not remove it. The next morning, it had sunk beneath the water. Nothing had been lost from the world. The tree still stood. Other buds were waiting. The basin held the flower without display. The day began. And now, here at the end of our long night path, perhaps you can feel all the small things we have passed. The cracked gate under moonlight, the letter already sent, the pears carried by the stream, the leaves in the autumn garden, the broken blue bowl, the ferry in the middle of the river, the shrine gate closed against the wind, the robe folded back into the chest, the crooked ink line, the lost coin, the fading bell, the leaves on the well water, the sandals under the eave, the candle cooling in the dark, the snowy inn, the icy road, the cracked lantern, the first boat drying on the shelf, the one lamp that waited for daylight. None of them needed to become perfect before night could hold them, and neither do you. You have walked far enough with your thoughts. You have checked enough doors. You have chased enough messengers. You have tried to gather enough pears from the water. You have stood long enough in the snow beside one weak flame. Now let the final flower float. Let the problem be in the basin. Let the branch be the branch, the water be the water, and the night be the night. Feel the whole body resting now, from the crown of the head to the soles of the feet. The forehead smooth, the eyes quiet, the jaw loose, the tongue resting, the throat open, the shoulders heavy, the arms warm, the hands empty, the chest soft, the belly easy, the back held, the hips sinking, the legs released, the feet no longer walking any road. When the breath comes, you do not need to repair it. The breath leaves. You do not need to follow it. If a thought rises, it may rise like a small ring on water. If it widens, let it widen. If it disappears, let it disappear. If another comes, it does not mean you have failed. It only means the water moved. There is nothing to fix tonight. Not because nothing matters, because rest matters too. Because a tired heart deserves shelter before instruction. Because morning hands are kinder than midnight hands. Because some wisdom enters only after the tools are put down. Let your inner gate close softly. Let the market empty. Let the bell stop ringing. Let the well be covered. Let the lamp burn or go out according to its oil. Let the boat dry.
Let the flower sink when it is ready. You may sleep now without solving the whole story. The old monastery grows quiet. Snow loosens from the roof. Somewhere, a monk turns once under his blanket and settles again. Somewhere, a candle lowers. Somewhere, water in a stone basin holds the dark shape of a flower beneath its surface. And all through the valley, things remain unfinished. Yet the night is peaceful. The moon passes through cracks. The river carries what it carries. The breath keeps arriving. And you, with nothing more to prove, nothing more to repair, nothing more to hold open with tired hands, may finally let yourself be carried too.